Hi everyone, this is Rohit from Lifestyle Mastery, and I'm excited to have Ali Hafizji, who's the CEO of Wednesday, which is an engineering services company specializing in data engineering, generative AI, and application or modernization. Welcome to the show, Ali.
Hi, Rohit. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So we had a great chat about what you're building, but before we talk about Wednesday and what are the other interesting things you're doing, how did you get in this crazy world of startups?
Um, yeah, I think I was just made to do this. I was always, just as a graduate, looking for ways in which I can leave a mark or find some purpose in my life. And one way that I thought would be and I didn't really have a problem statement that I was going after. And one way that I thought where I could leave a mark was to just find the smartest person that I know and then work with them because they would obviously be doing something meaningful. And everybody that I could think of that I knew at that time were doing startups. Um, so I remember that when I graduated, there were a bunch of offers where I would be working in a big company, with all of the amenities that they provide, and I ended up working in a 11-person startup where the only sunlight that we had was where the only light that we had was the sun, and it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot of things, and I think that's just my means to finding a way to have purpose. And ever since, I've either worked at a startup or I've done a startup, so I've always been in these two modes. When I'm completely drained or there's a event in the company, I mean, I've had an exit. I went and go and I would go and work somewhere. And then when I find, a good enough problem statement, I go and build something.
Interesting. I've always been an operator in startups, and
Yeah.
I somehow feel that I'll always be in tech startups. But what led you to build Wednesday? Was it something you wanted? Was it a conscious decision to build something in services?
Yeah, so I was actually at the time doing another startup, which was a product venture, and
Okay.
it was a fintech company.
Right.
And to do anything in this space in India, you need to have a banking partner. Now, our banking partner at that time was a large listed bank. And for us to be able to build a digital solution, we needed to work with their IT team.
Right.
And what we needed was basically just a few APIs to be able to do a customer KYC and onboard them. And ultimately, we would be the front end and then connect with the bank APIs to do the transactions and, manage the money, etc. And just to get like a few APIs, it took us 6 months. And every time I would go to Mumbai and meet with their team, I would realize that, this entire IT system is broken. They would have 200 people who were managing, a few APIs. And the formats were wrong. They weren't like semantically correct. Many a times they wouldn't work, etc. And it just felt like IT was broken in the enterprise. So that was the insight that I gained while I was doing this startup. And then I started, just reading a lot about IT services and how this business works because it's not like the bank is not doing well. The bank was doing phenomenally well. These guys are really, really good at identifying risk. They're very, very good at, banking, but they're not really great with digital or, technology. So in effect, I found that a lot of these companies were just throwing people at the problem, but that wasn't really solving it. Um, Fast forward, when I was done with that venture of mine, I decided that, let's try and build teams that would build products or take decisions while building products just the way that I would.
Right.
And can we build these teams and offer them as a service? That was the idea in terms of how it started. And then of course, it's evolved a lot as I've spent time on it and try and really figure out what's the business value and how do you create an offer for it and things like that. But that was generally that was in general the insight that I had, and the start of Wednesday, which is can we build teams, small teams, that would take decisions just the way that I would when I was building the startup. Because, we were just two people and we were building a product that was consuming APIs that like 200 people were building. Something is off here, right?
Right.
Um,
Correct. Interesting because somebody who's into startups, they would want to work in a product-based company, but
mhm.
I've seen service-based companies also get to have great margins. Even services companies do get bought. What advice you give to somebody who's in their 20s or maybe 30s and they want to start their first business? Should they look at a service-based company as their first startup, or should they look at a product-based startup to go with?
I don't think the answer to my well, where do you move in? That's an interesting question. So I think that this bifurcation of product company and service company and where should I go and work is primarily driven by um, um, sort of like what's going on in the media where people talk about, let's say, a funding round or something like that. But by definition, there may be no difference in what you do at a product company and versus a service company. So, for example, let's say you are a person who specializes in software engineering or a person who specializes in, let's say, project management or design. You may be doing the exact same thing. Your role will be exactly the same. But in a product, like the outcomes may differ, or sometimes the outcomes may also be the same. But you may be more accountable in a services company to actually deliver those.
Right.
So I think that for a person who is looking for a job, they should probably not really decide, based on whether this is a product venture or a services venture, and not really look for that, but rather they should look at the people that they would get to work with.
Right. Interesting.
Who is it that I'm going to be, working alongside, or who is it that I'm going to be reporting to, or who is it, or what is the, let's say, growth plan for the company. And that's something that you can ask in your interview, I think. And, work at a place where you have a voice, work at a place where, you get to really, really experiment and learn your craft, work at a place where you're not the loudest or smartest person in the room. And I think you will eventually do well.
Got interesting. And do you think somebody should you should fall in love with the idea, because you started off something in like a financial product, but should somebody fall in love, or should they personally let go of something and build something which is uh, which which you have done? You pivoted from product based company to a service based company.
Um, See, I think at the end of the day, what matters is, is the business actually working, which ultimately means, I mean, it's not really a matter of top line, but it is a matter of like how much profit are you able to generate? Like that's the fundamental indicator as to whether the business is working or no, and whether it's sustainable or no. And if you look at that primary metric, which is, probably a return on capital invested or something like that, um, you'll realize that it's not right to stick with an idea. Um, because when you stick to one idea, you're primarily driven by passion and not data. And if you're in a business that has, um, you know, a lot of decisions are actually taken basis what you think will work, it's probably not going to work. I have never started a business and with an insight and then continued to do that over a long period of time. It's always evolved, changed, pivoted completely.
Correct.
I think the ultimate test is, the market.
Yeah.
Does it
Yeah.
actually work?
And what do you think is the biggest mistake founders make between MVP and product market fit, and how can they avoid it?
I think that, yeah, that's a very good question. And the service that we offer, which is Launch, exactly caters to this segment. Um, I think, most people in today's day and age, whether you're in India or in the US or any other part of the world, the ecosystem has evolved to support founders. If they create an MVP, they typically have a few people that are using their product and giving them feedback, most likely people they know.
Right.
And I think at this point, they join an accelerator or some other program. They raise like a small pre-seed or seed round of investment as well. So I think the emotions are high.
Correct.
And what happens at this point is what people get wrong is they think that what they did so far is going to, if they continue to do it, they are going to succeed. But most likely they will not. And they will hit a wall if they continue to do what they're doing. So things that we see which are repeated patterns is number one, um, people start to talk a lot about vanity metrics at this point. And this can be something as simple as, the number of PR mentions that are happening or media mentions. It could be the amount of traffic coming to your website, the amount of app installs, the number of people actually signing up for your product. This does not mean anything. And see, companies need to fundamentally change what they do at a certain milestone to be able to reach the next one. If they continue to do what they are doing, they are not going to reach there. It doesn't work like that. Most companies grow in S curves. And when you are at the tip of the S curve, you will start seeing certain patterns happen. And at the MVP stage, this is what starts to happen. Focus on vanity metrics. You start to do things that are not proven and you scale it up. Like, for example, you don't know what marketing messaging works, and you're suddenly investing in like campaigns worth thousands of dollars on Google and Facebook and all of these platforms, but you fundamentally don't even know what messaging works for your audience.
Right.
Um, you may start getting into this feature trap, which is you're constantly building and thinking of new features that your customer wants, but you haven't really identified, who this customer is. The people that you're talking to are people that you already know. That's
Right.
how an MVP is built. Um, so companies need to change how they do things at this developmental stage. I always think of it as like a child, like as the child grows, at 6 months of age, the child is supposed to do different things. And that marks a development milestone. And this is the same thing in the life cycle of a company as well. The founders need to fundamentally change what they are doing once they have MVP. And these are the big mistakes. It's a repeated pattern. It's about almost 60 to 70% of startups at MVP fail because of these two reasons. They focus on the wrong things. Money runs out.
Right. So I just want to follow up on that because if somebody has shipped the MVP, what
Mm.
exactly should be the next 30 days be? What should be they be tracking and doubling down on?
So I think that, for any, I mean, we'll just talk about product companies because I think that's the goal. I think it would be very different for a services business. And the idea of service market fit is just not there. I think it's a concept that needs to be created, and we can talk about that later. But um, for a product company, I think one needs to focus on the fundamental pirate metrics, is what we call it, which is, acquisition, activation, retention, referral, and revenue.
Right.
So, what we keep telling our founders is that you have reached here and you've done a great job,
Correct.
right? You are promising your customers certain value. Identify what your core user flow is, or what we call product loop, and identify ways in which you can provide the value that you promise them in the shortest amount of time and friction possible. And in this product loop, there are different stages. So, for example, you have an activation, which is a sign up. You have an activation, someone might do a KYC or something like that. Let's say you're a compliance product, or let's say you're a B2B product. They might integrate your SDK. Then there is retention. Do they come back? Then there is referral. Are they so happy that they actually refer people? And there's revenue, that they start paying you a fee for it. I would say that the first 30 days are very, very critical. If you're a B2C product, let's say you're an app or something like that, you're an app or web app or something like that, you want to look at, your retention metric. Um, you're supposed to sort of look at it over like a day one, day seven, day 15, and day 30 time span. And what we typically want is at least 50% people should reopen the app on day one, and then 25% day 7 to 10 to and 15 it would be, let's say, 15%. But on day 30 you want to continue at that 15%. So from launch to day 30, on every feature cycle
Yeah.
you should be starting at 50% and then at least ending with a 15% reopen or reuse.
Okay.
And for a B2B product, you want to be at a flat 20 to 30%. You know, that's what makes it, that's what proves whether what you're doing is working or not. Even if it's in a small sample set. So I'm not saying that your sample set needs to be hundreds of thousands of people. It needs to be a small set of people that is marketable. So for example, let's say I define a certain user segment, let's say moms who are home cooks or
Right.
home chefs. Do you have a marketable way of reaching out to them? And it can be as simple as a WhatsApp group or like a Telegram group or something like that. But are they reachable to you? If you have defined that, and you need to measure just these stats with this small segment of users that you have access to. And if you're hitting these metrics, then you're doing the right thing. And this data should fuel decision making. So I think most people reach MVP based on their own problem that they're facing.
Yeah.
They build an MVP saying that, I have observed this as a customer, or let's say a person working in a B2B business, or they have some experience working with another B2B business. It's always personal experience. Sometimes they also learn something by doing market research. I'm not saying it's the only way, but usually it's like that. And they typically build for themselves or the people around them. But if you think about it, the initial MVP build is based on an insight that you already know. And what you're changing now is you're moving to a data-driven process. I'm not saying you need to completely get rid of your own insights that you already know, but use this as well. It's a change in thought process. It's a change in the way that you've come this far.
Correct. And Ali, I've always been on the revenue side of the business, and I always
Okay.
thought that if I can't build product, I'll do sales in startups. I'll get revenue. But what has
Hmm.
happened in the last couple of years is you got Lovable, Windsurf, Codium, and you all got these tools where people can build like an MVP product. But
Hmm.
but it has certainly speeded things up. But what can teams do where they're just not building faster, but they're building smarter also. So does these AI tools have that feedback loop where it tells them that uh, to build those features or product features which really matters?
Yeah, I think one should definitely look at what's available right now and use it to their advantage. So
Right.
my sense of this is, we love using all of these AI tools. In fact, all of our software development practices are AI driven, and it's not just development, it's also like QA and release automation and rollbacks and everything like documentation and product, everything uses some of the other AI tools. My sense of this is because these things are available now, you should not need any additional help to build the MVP. You should be able to do it yourself.
Okay.
So my sense is no matter who you are, what your background is, whether you've been doing operations, finance, sales, you can go on YouTube and learn how to use these products or listen to podcasts like this.
Yeah.
And you will learn how to use these products and you can build something. So the MVP, I think the founders don't need help to do that. But at the MVP stage, and let's say you have raised that round of funding, a new realization needs to come in, which is while there are these AI tools available for development, and it may appear that it has become easier, what has fundamentally become more difficult is marketing, distribution, sales, and fundraising.
Right.
It is extremely difficult to do these things today.
Correct.
You are never the first mover in anything that you pick.
Yeah.
So the founder's role needs to change to do this now. And at this point, the founder needs to learn, how do I evaluate? Either I need to get a team that can do this product development for me, right? Do it in-house, get a partner, whatever you want to do, you pick. But you need to be educated on, how do I evaluate what is the right fit? We are in the age of AI, and I think this is again another very big problem that founders face, is that they always go wrong in identifying their initial few recruits, which are so important for the life of that business. It is make or break. Um, and I think the way to identify this, if you're a founder and listening to this, is, if you don't have answers to questions like, what is the one feature that, my customers absolutely love? Or what is the one feature that my customers absolutely want today? Um, or, things like, how much time do I have to actually think of a marketing strategy within our budget and actually do it? If you don't have time to think about this and do all this, you are too operationally involved. You're most likely doing all the work, and that needs to change. It will not succeed. You've probably come this far because of this, but it will not move you ahead. You at the MVP, you need to seek answers. You need to build a framework that gets you answers, and that requires the founder. Nobody can help you do that. But you can get help if you know what to evaluate for, to definitely think with you and build this product in you having a to and fro conversation with a smart team. That is possible. So I think people just need to know what to evaluate and what to look for.
Correct. And you made an interesting point about brand and distribution. So I think with AI, it's become easier for people to build products. But how do
Mhm.
you build a moat in that AI era where it become easier to build products? But how do you build a brand and distribution?
Well, that's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I think it differs from the core value, or the problem that you're solving, So my sense on this is, I think it changes also basis the maturity of the company, and also the amount of available runway that the company has. But I think that a brand is basically the way a customer thinks about your product, the way the customer feels after they interact with your offering, be it a service or a product. It is something that you need to infuse in what you do from day one. So I think a brand is more of a long-term compounded game. And it's really dependent on what the founder does and the behaviors that the founder has and the value system that he inculcates, that ultimately gets translated in terms of the product or service that they offer through their people, through their digital offering, whatever. But I think distribution is different than brand. Distribution is a means to reach that set of people. And one can do, infinite things for that. I was reading somewhere that there are now 9 different GTM strategies. Earlier, there was like one,
Yeah.
and it's just evolved. There's so many. You have like a content-led strategy, an ad-based strategy, a partner-led strategy, an event-led strategy, an influencer-led strategy. God knows this. There's just so many different things that you can do. My suggestion, I mean, this is what we suggest all of the clients that we work with, is you pick one. And you pick one basis. Again, it's a game of evaluation. It's all about decision making. You pick one basis what your strength is,
Okay.
and which has which has um, a measurable ROI. And then you try and see what is the amount of investment that is needed and whether you can make it or not, and how much runway does that give you. So I think it's also it's a mix and match between budgeting your own strengths, You need to like do a SWOT and then knowing your market. And if you combine these three, you will identify what is the right GTM channel for you. But again, because we see this happen so often, um, if you've not done your budgeting and if you've not identified where your customers are and if you don't know what your strengths are, you will end up doing what your competitors are doing.
Correct.
Most likely, your competitors are in a different um, stage of business. Maybe they've raised more money than you. Maybe they actually have far more people or far more co-founders who are far more skilled than you. They may have different strengths and they're playing to that, but you will end up doing that. And you will end up competing with them and you will lose. And you don't realize it, but it happens, and it happens to a lot of people. Um, One of the things that we advise people in, as we're, I mean, we are sort of consultants. We help design and build the product, but as we're building it, we like to have to and fro conversations with our clients because we want all of our clients to win. And we keep, having this sort of advisor consultant relationship. And we keep telling them that, sometimes the easiest thing to do is to take something that is known and like take something that people know and make it different, right? So, for example, we offer IT services.
Right.
The whole world knows it. It's $1 trillion business,
Correct.
but everybody is selling other people's time. Correct. That's what they're doing. They hire people and then they sell the time and they charge on an hourly basis. So the client is just buying or paying you to hire someone.
Right.
It's a staffing business.
Correct. Yeah.
Um, we just took this idea. We said that the buyer is already doing it and we just changed it a bit. We said that we will not charge you for hours. We will charge you for an outcome. And the best way to measure an outcome in the software or product engineering business is a sprint.
Right.
So a sprint is 2 weeks of work. We will decide what to do in a prioritized manner. We'll use AI to build it, so we'll build more. But if we don't build it and 2 weeks becomes 3 weeks, we'll still charge you the same. So you get an outcome, thereby a skin in the game. So we just tweaked things a bit. We made something that is already happening in this world and changed it a bit, and it becomes different. Do the same in your offering. No matter what you're doing, whether you're offering a product or service, look at what your competitors are doing. So here's another sort of hack, right? So let's say you're in the content creation space and you're offering a tool that helps marketers write content. And there are a lot of these now that are available.
True.
You have some insight and you've built some MVP, people are using it. Let's say it's for a specific vertical, let's say it's just for podcasters. Um, Look at what your competitors are doing and find out who are the people who are using that product but are very unhappy. Okay, so and you'll always find that you'll find reviews, you'll find like all kinds of things on Reddit, blah blah. Look at the unhappy people and try and change your business offering to meet their needs because they'll be the first to adopt you. And now you have a marketable way to reach them. So start at the periphery. You will have a differentiated offering because these people are anyway unhappy with what's being offered, which is what we knew. There's a huge business. People are buying it, it's happening, but they're unhappy because it's just stuffing.
Yeah.
Nobody buys services to hire people. People buy services to get an outcome. Nobody wants people. People want product. We just changed it. We started looking at the periphery and started going after these customers. So you start at the periphery, compound, and you'll hit the center. And that's how businesses usually find PMF.
Correct. No, I think it's super interesting. And Ali, you also work with 10% of India's unicorns. What are something which unicorn companies are doing consistently after they find traction that others are not able to do it?
So I think we need to understand here is that so we've worked very closely with So India saw a huge boom in the number of unicorns, in the
Correct.
COVID era, almost 110, 120 unicorn, maybe more now, I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, what I feel happened very well in this ecosystem was it was the funding was offered by um, groups, or I would say funds that had operators, and they were advised very correctly. So I think what I see as a very nice trend among all of the people that we've worked with is that there is a change in mindset at the founder level. And the change in mindset is we need to achieve a certain growth trajectory. They think big, right? We need to achieve a certain vision. And I know that I don't know everything,
Yeah.
which is a very huge thing for a founder to say. Because he's come here, I mean, of course, all credit to them. They've built this so far. It is all because of what they know and they did. But to come to that point and have that change in mindset and say, I may not know everything. And now I may need people who know their these specialized things. And I think what I see them do very, very well is they have this culture of experimentation, which is unparalleled. Um, and I purely think that it's a change in mindset. It's not like they have had all good experiences, but they don't stop trying.
Interesting. And how do you get to decide when do you give up versus when to stick to it? Like I've seen a couple of pivots which has happened for a company, but when do you get to stick to it when everything feels uncertain?
Well, I think even when things are working, it feels uncertain, right? So I don't think that's taking it away. That's what you signed up for if you're a founder. Like, you get used to it.
Right.
If you're a founder and you're unhappy with uncertainty, then you probably shouldn't be a founder. But I think that's just what you've signed up for. But how do you identify when to pivot? It's a good question. I think one needs to, again, look at the stage of the business that they are in. And so my sense on this is that the only reason why you should pivot is
Right.
when the market is not giving you the result. So, for example, when there is little to no ROIC, like return on invested capital.
Okay.
But if you feel or if you think that there are many things that I have not done yet, right? And these are changes always start at the top. The founder has to change, like I said. The founding team, founders, they have to change. They have to start doing things differently. If they have not tried or changed, then I think you should keep trying. But if you feel like, I've changed my entire focus. I'm doing so much marketing. I've identified the right channel. We're investing money as well. We've tried different channels as well, but I'm just not getting a return on invested capital. Then I think a pivot makes sense. Maybe the market doesn't need it.
Correct. And you had made a interesting remark about non-technical founders can also build MVPs. But
Mhm.
what do non-technical founders get wrong when they're trying to build a tech product, and how can they course correct early? And do they need a technical founder now?
See, I think that it's not, I think you need people from multiple facets of life,
Right.
different walks of life, and different experiences to build a successful business.
Right.
Building a successful business is very different from you becoming successful.
Right.
You can be successful working at a large company, right? But to build a successful business, you need people from all walks of life, all different types of skills. So, do you need a CTO? I mean, the question I think rather is that do you know or can you convince somebody skilled enough to join you? If yes, do it. It will help you. Um, but coming to your earlier point about building an MVP, I think what most people get wrong today is if you're sufficiently smart, you will be able to build it using these AI tools. But I think what most people get wrong is that they start to build everything from day one. What you need to identify is that what's most important to get an MVP out is focus. It is a minimum viable product. You need to identify that, you know, what is that one feature or one thing that I can build that showcases the value prop or the problem that I'm trying to solve and get it in the hands of users. So I find many people who have just spent like 8 months building an MVP, and I don't necessarily think that that's the right thing for today's age.
Correct. And what does like a high performing engineering team look for you? Are you also looking to hire junior engineers where you uh, can find that AI can do a lot of that work? So how's it different from past couple of years to now?
Um, yeah. So I think most product companies, the reason to hire is to actually get an outcome. And that outcome is typically moving a business metric. So help me move a business metric. So let me tell you, like, how does the flow of hiring typically work in a product company?
Right.
It typically starts by identifying or doing some market research or talking to the customers and identifying, here are the things that we think, it starts with research. Here are the things that we know we should build. And it leads to the creation of a product backlog or a roadmap. And then basis that, they do a projection, say, okay, like even if we were to use AI to build this out, like what is the strength of the engineering team that we need? Is it 5, 10, 15? What do we need? And then they go and let's say hire those people and then they start building. So what happens if you reverse or rewind? The business has only one objective, which is to provide value to the customers.
Right.
They want to deliver these features, which they think is going to be valuable, which will ultimately help them make more profit. Um, but this is where I think most people go wrong as well. Um, they this message is not necessarily passed through down in the same way. Even senior engineers don't understand that what they're building is actually helping the business in a particular way. The distance between the engineer and the customer is too high, is too much. They don't understand the return on the work that they do. What tends to happen as a side effect is that you end up just giving a lot of tasks to people without having a way to measure return. And I think this is a very, very big problem. So if you're looking to create a team, my fundamental view on this is that it needs to be a super small team,
Okay.
and it needs to be a team where you can talk to them in an outcome. Like you talk to them about changing metrics rather than giving tasks. So today, if you're a startup and you're building a team, this should be like your litmus test. Am I able to talk to my team about the objectives that we want to meet, or problems that we want to solve for our customers? Or am I giving them tasks? Because if you're giving them tasks, then you'll have to follow up. You'll have to like check, recheck, do all that. You're too involved. Um, yeah.
Correct. And a couple of years back, we thought that AI will replace drivers or people are doing
Mhm.
menial work. But interestingly, what has happened in the last couple of years is, I mean, I use Clay.com, Apollo, Full Enrich, which has made my life easier. But but it looks like it's the designers, the engineers who might there's a possibility they might lose their job, at least for the junior ones. But somebody who's listening to the podcast and they are getting into university, be it in India, US, Europe, wherever, what advice would you give to them? Should they take up like a computer science engineering course, or what should they do to make themselves AI ready?
Um, so I have a different view on this.
Okay.
So My view on this is any field of study exists only because people need skilled those skills.
Right.
Otherwise, it would not exist.
Right.
Um, so, is computer engineering still relevant? I think so. I very much think so. But I think that the person who's listening to this, and if they're going to, pick their area of study, no matter what you pick, what matters at the end of the day is your ability to contribute meaningfully to that business.
Right.
And for that, you need to be able to understand how what you do helps that business move ahead. And if you just do that and do it well, you are no longer a coder
Right.
or a designer, but you are a product engineer. You're also thinking about the product, or you are a product designer who's also thinking about how what I'm doing is going to actually change the life of my user. And the same thing is applicable for anything else, whether you're a lawyer or a finance executive or an accountant for that matter.
Right.
Even if you're an accountant, it's not the numbers that matter, but the insight that you can derive from that numbers, helping the business make better decisions.
And how about product managers? Because a lot of product
Mhm.
managers do not code anymore, but they manage designers and engineers. Or do you think product managers will or will not exist in 2030? But you will have designers who also working like a product thinker, designer, manager.
Yeah, so my view on this is that AI being added to a software development lifecycle will have the effect of that will primarily be on the size of the team,
Okay.
and will also have and the way that you will decide, who stays is, what they can do with AI to move metrics. So I think that you still need a product manager. You still need somebody to actually, do the research, think high levels, think strategy, etc., etc. Um, think business. You still need the designer. You still need engineers, but you need more. You need them to start thinking about business as well. So I think the definition of a product engineering team will be very different even a year from now. And I think for us, it's already looking different.
Yeah.
Like I'm part of teams where, designers and engineers are talking about, when a user signs up, what is the time that it takes for them to get first value? Like, how can we optimize for that? And these conversations were just unheard of in teams before this, right? They weren't really measuring their coding tasks by metrics like these. And what tends to happen if you have conversations like this is that the whole nature of software development changes. In fact, agile changes. Agile is very different from what we're doing right now.
Correct. And um, Ali, you've been running Wednesday and Tuesday as well. But what do you prefer more? Do you want all your employees to be in person, or do you also think like a remote sort of work works? And where do you think the because of AI coming in, where do you see that nature of work, you know, being transferred going forward?
What's your view on it? I feel like this is everyone has a different view on it.
Yeah, so
Uh,
interestingly, in Europe and US, I still see that sort of hybrid model, and that
yeah.
people are still working remotely. And in fact, in the last 2 years, I've worked remotely. But since I've come back to India, wanted to understand what are the founders and and product leaders thinking about that sort of work.
So I think what you mentioned is absolutely right. So when you're in the US, um, the difference between them and here is that the infrastructure that is available is far more than what you have here. And we also need to understand that most people in India live in joint families. They live with their parents, etc. So the environment, even at home, may not be the most conducive. Um, so look, I'm not saying you won't find the right fit in a remote setting. You may.
Right.
But I think that if you want to scale up, you need to accept the reality of where you are in and create practices that allow for certain behaviors to propagate and pass through in the system in your team. And I think our way is to do it in person. That's what we like.
Right.
I don't see a way for us to scale up to, let's say, a 200-person services business being remote in India. I think, the infrastructure, the context is just too difficult to sort of baseline to, let's say, the US.
Right, right. Yeah, and in fact, I have also seen, especially for junior roles in London and New York, they would ask revenue operators to come and work in the office. Once they're a little more mature, they have an understanding of the business. For senior folks, they could be like a hybrid model. No,
Mhm.
totally. Ali, I quickly want to do the top three. What's your favorite business book?
I read this recent one. It's called Tribal Leadership. I think it's very interesting. I really like the read.
Okay, I've not heard about this one. I will put that in the show notes. I'll also have a look at it. And if you could go back in time when you started Wednesday, what is the one thing you would have focused on or done something differently?
Um, I would have, I would have hired, um, I would have got a few independent directors and advisors.
Interesting. Correct. And do you have any favorite online tools, for example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom, ChatGPT?
I use a lot of Notion.
No shit. Correct. We'll put that in show notes. Ali, what's the best way people can reach out to you and know more about Wednesday?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. I'm Ali Hafizji on LinkedIn. You can find me there, reach out, say hi. You can also reach out to me at ali@wednesday.is or go to our website and hit the contact us button. I'm happy to chat and tell you about our services or just get to know one another. Either way,
Awesome. We'll put that in show notes. Ali, thank you so much for taking your time and speaking to us. I really enjoyed my conversation with you.
same here. Appreciate it. Thank you.